Okay, good morning, everybody. Let's start our course just now. I see almost the whole class is in. I activated live captions, so probably you will be able to see the text of what I say while I talk. So that's a motivation to speak a bit slower so the system can transcribe my talk. And I think a help for you to understand my special way of speaking English. So everybody, welcome. There's many familiar faces around. Also, special welcome to Yesenia, which is our exchange student from Mexico. We have been almost 1 year without exchange students because of the limitations of the pandemic. So it's nice to see there is still movement coming in. Today's lecture is just the introduction to the course. So I will explain what's the contents and what we intend to do. So please pay some attention so you know what to expect from this course. I'm still checking different ways to share the lecture. And I noticed that the presentation file cannot go in full screen mode. The system doesn't work. So in order not to make you wait too much, I will show the screen like this without the full screen. Okay. So in the photo of the cover, you have just one of the field trips we did a few years ago. That's the structure of Amore Pacific building by Chipperfield. Well, people keep coming in, so I have to stop some time to let people come in into the class. Actually, almost the whole class is here. I hope every week we have a good attendance. So we will have 3 parts. Self-introduction. I think most of you know me, but just in case, I will repeat who I am. Then the core of the lecture, which is what is the contents of the lecture, of the class. And then the third part is a bit more practical explanation on how the course will be carried out. So let's go into the first part. So this nice guy in the photo is myself. My name is Santiago Porras Alvarez. Spanish is a very long name. That is because we have our father's family name and our mother's family name, which, you know, it's quite considerate with women. And you have the transcription, very approximate transcription in Hangul. Actually, in Korea, I'm just Santiago because the transcription is almost identical to Spanish. It's not Santiago, it's Santiago, but okay, I can recognize it. And it comes from Latin, actually. It's the mix of Sanctus and Jacobus. This is why Santiago, Jacob, James, it is the same name, actually. But the saint is within my name. And this is the tochang, the seal I use when we had a paper assignments and so on. When you address to me, just please call me just a professor or Professor Santiago. At least in school, don't call me hey you or hi Santiago, which in Korea sounds terribly informal. So I think Professor Santiago is just okay. So for myself, well, I'm quite old. I can be the age of your parents, older, younger, depending on which part of in your family. I graduated in 1985. It's already quite a lot of years. And my degree is equivalent to architect engineer, right? I'm registered already for 35 years. And I studied also in Tokyo University, where I get my doctoral degree. And I have been teaching in Korea since 2008. So it's already 13 years teaching, which provides some experience. If you want to reach me, my office is in Innovation Building. My room is 809A. It has beautiful views over Annam-dong and to our very, very high technology parking. You know, our campus became a huge parking, so I can see it from my office. And you have my email and office phone. Nobody uses fixed phones almost ever, but you can find me in my cell phone if you need. Our TA is Gong Byung-jun. It has a very fancy email address, but you can reach him in the cell phone. So please, for all practical matters of attendance, submissions, paperwork, contact him because he's the one doing all this background work. In the photo, it's not our assistant. It is taken during the construction of our new engineering building. That's the basement. So you see the mess, which is just sitting under that high technology building. Well, let's continue with the course and let's go to the main parts. What is this course about? What are we going to do? So the course is divided basically in two parts, and those parts overlap. The first one is theoretical, so it's mostly a review of what you studied already. Most of you are fifth year, are doing your final graduation project. Some of you are fourth year. I think somebody from third year also registered. You're from second year. Well, you're all very welcome. But for most of you, this is mostly a review. So it is unavoidable. We have some overlap with other courses. Some people like it because it is nice to review things you almost forgot. Some people say it is wasting time because we saw already. And some people even hate it because they already forgot and they have to review it again. Well, that's the case I wish is less common because our courses are not there for you to pass the exam and forget. The purpose is just to support your knowledge, your skills, your abilities to make better projects, which I think should be the purpose of everybody. So try not to forget things, at least not to forget the basics. And the second part tries to be more practical. It's like an architectural system studio. Of course, studio is design studio. We cannot do parallel studio here. But the idea is to apply those things you know into your own project, which obviously is your design studio 7 and 8, most of you. If you are not into that stage yet, or you think your studio is not enough developed, you can use any other project you like or you're proud of, and that will be perfectly okay. So theory, you know, it is in the books. They say it is in internet now, all knowledge. You have a lot of information, but internet is a wide jungle and it's very easy to get lost. So my first recommendation is to start, at least to start on the books, which are well controlled, organized, and then you can add, update something in internet. But we will use all sources, of course. And practice is about doing. And in the school, unfortunately, for most architecture students, we cannot practice what we do. The most we can do is to design. You go to medical school, and you go to hospital, and you treat real patients, so you help with them. You go to art school, and you make real paintings and sculptures, and you have the result of your work, and so on. In architecture, we usually do not make full buildings to graduate. So the closest we go is, as some of you did already or may have done, is the U-house or small practices or small work in other offices. But we will try to do this practical work at least on the design stage. But we have to be aware that those drawings we make, those details, are not the end. We have always to have the vision of the finished result of those guys you see here, using their hands to assemble something, to create whatever we designed. And having this visualization of the final thing and the process of real construction will help you a lot to understand better what we say and to make better details and in the end better designs. So I will repeat, this is the text of what I said. So I understand this course as a support for your graduation project. There you have to show not only your ability to design, but you have to demonstrate you have some idea on how those things will become real, how this will connect to the final construction of the building. So this is why we will have a brief review of all building systems and the technologies. And it is brief because we have the time we have. We have 16 weeks and 2 lessons per week. So we will try to do what we can in this period. And the most important is to apply all that knowledge in your project and always be creative. There is a misconception of detailing and construction being just application of standards and finding the right detail from a catalog and copying and pasting. But actually, up to the small detail, you can be creative. And the more those details connect to your design idea, concept, if you want to call it like that, the better will be your project. So we need both theory and practice. And if we can, we go to a construction site. We used to do almost every year, but with the pandemic, it is very hard. And besides, we have almost 60 students. So most construction companies get scared with so many visitors. But well, without pandemic, we were able to have at least 1 or 2 construction site visits during the course, and it was quite helpful and interesting. But well, let's see what happens this spring. So let's go through the requirements, and this is organized by the school. I didn't decide everything. I designed the course, but the conditions come from the KUA and from the mysterious committees we have in our department, which decide how things work. So important thing is sustainability. And also it's kind of side course in our school, in our department. It's kind of the core of any activity, not only architecture and design. Any activity now has to demonstrate how sustainable it is. So we have to take it seriously, and we will put a lot of efforts in this point. Second part, very important, is the system integration, which is for those who are superstitious. Number 13 is kind of unlucky. And so unlucky that KUA, the accreditation board of Korea, always thinks we are not doing enough in this aspect. Integration is basically to consider all those technological elements in your design process, so they become part of your project, not something you apply later and that have to be stuffed or applied forcibly without a natural connection with the rest of the design. And of course, the photo is one of my favorites, which tells what is not system integration. It's a very extreme case. Other SPC is one of your favorite structural systems. And well, our school has traditionally a lot of courses on structures. And some of them, I cannot tell in detail, but some of them are really good. And for some reason, it's kind of a black beast. Most of you start to sweat and shivers only to see the structural name. We'll try to take the mystery out of it and try to, in the reduced time we have, to remember or to point to some parts, some ideas, or some numbers which really might be helpful in your design process. So engineers, at least, do not laugh at you, and you don't have a complex of being ignorant. We cannot be expert at everything, of course, and most of us rely on engineers for structures, but without being experts, being ignorant is not something we should be proud of. And the basic understanding of structures greatly helps our design and also the relation with engineers and the final construction. Maybe worse, environmental control systems. Actually, we have a new professor for that. Professor Lee is very passionate and very expert in environment. And I hope, I'm not sure if you all had the opportunity to study with him, but whatever. This is also one part which is, in which we rely on engineers, but we need, again, to have a basic knowledge. And at least in terms of environmental control, the building envelope, that's the facade, the roof, the windows, curtain wall, glass, and so on. It is the basic barrier to control the environment. And this is mostly architects' work. So this is why we spend as much time, or maybe more time, in the envelope than we do in the active systems. But we have to study them and review. Well, building service systems, that's a complementary of the other. I will not insist, but again, this is something we have to be aware of and we have to integrate in the project. And if you see this photo, those systems take a lot of space. So in our projects, at least we have to have a provision, to have an idea on how much space they will need to calculate our ceiling heights and to put the shafts and all those things. So it's quite simple thing we have to do, but again, that greatly helps engineers and construction companies to make their building and helps you to really control the result. And there are two SPCs we fail consistently inspection after inspection, and two of them are related to our course. One is safety and egress. I will not translate. This is the comment of the accreditation board, right? About safety and about system integration. We commented, and you know, next year, 2022, is the inspection year. So the result of the inspection will depend very much on your performance. So you have double responsibility, not only graduating, but also working hard and seriously to have our department in a good position so your HUBE will enjoy 5 or 6 more years of accreditation without so many lags. So please take those things seriously and study, produce your work in a way we can demonstrate you really have the basic, at least the basic minimum understanding we are expected or expecting from architects. So safety is important, and you know, especially fire. And well, this is one of the most painful fire hazards, the famous Grenfell Tower in London. I think it was already 5 years ago. But we have like a fire disasters almost every other day, also in Korea, everywhere. And the way we design buildings, actually Grenfell Tower fire was so terrible, so many victims because of bad design, bad construction, and bad material choices. So with a proper application of the safety and protection basic standards, probably nobody would have died in that case. So please take this seriously, and we will include this in our SPC 19, right? The service systems. So this is the summary of the SPCs we have. It is a 5, indirectly 6 SPCs, which is quite a lot for a theory course, which is very specialized. That means we need to review a lot of materials. We have no choice. This is what the school told us. Of course, there's a lot of critics about performance criteria. So it is too much, and it is too late to do this in 5th year. Okay, yes, it is a lot. And I insist, I did not invent this course, right? But actually, the positive way, it is a review. If you already started things and you forgot them, you have to reconsider what is your attitude facing your studies, right? And again, we are just going into the very basics, and the basics which anywhere in the world people expect are well understood and applied by somebody who studied 5 years, a major. So yes, it is a lot. Yes, it is 5th year. But consider it as a review and a companion of the basics you're expected to know, not only in Korea, but anywhere in the world. Of course, many of your seniors are very sarcastic about this. Yeah, so accreditation is just a big lie, some of them. And very often, if you want to go to Europe, you have to start from 2nd year, sometimes from 1st year. Well, the accreditation systems are quite recent, especially KUA, but it is helping. So not always you have to go so low level. And other places like United States, Mexico, Australia, and so on, the United Kingdom, have tools to at least consider more what we do. And that's thanks to the accreditation system. So in June is not perfect, is cumbersome, it's bureaucratic, we have to do a lot of paperwork, but it is the world we have. We live in a bureaucratic culture. So instead of crying and complaining, we can just use that for our benefit, right? And try to get the most of the positive things it has, which it has actually. Let's continue. So let's see the course in context to explain a bit more how these things work. So this is a graphic you may find in the brochure. I think the architectural program has been emailed to all of you. You may also get a paper printed copy at the department office, Henjongshil. And well, this is how the studies are organized. So we have this backbone of design studio, which is like the core of our studies. And then we have a series of theory courses, urban planning, and so on, which support. And then those orange or brown, light brown courses are all technical materials. Finally, professional practice. And you see here, building systems is kind of a funnel which collects all courses of structures, all courses of environmental systems, and all courses on construction. Actually, the connection with architectural materials is very close because I teach both, and those courses overlap. So it is logic that we repeat some things. I will try to be less repetitive and to have this as a revision. And well, probably a building management or building construction, which is actually management, I think should be more, as it is taught in the professional practice, more than real construction. But for me, it's kind of mystery course, which is taught in Korean. I don't see how much it goes in this line. But this is telling you that building systems, I think it's the only course, apart from the graduation studio, which really has a huge amount of material pouring in. And the application, you see, goes to Studio 7. Studio 7, you should hurry a little bit, or at least start your concept studies, integrating these ideas into the concept, the ideas of how structure, how systems will be implemented in those spaces you're creating. But most people will apply the details in Studio 8. If you go into the yearbook, which is already online, I think, the printed version will be available soon, so you can get in the office. But if you see some of the best Studio 8 projects actually include details or develop details that were studied during the building systems course. And then best of them have a much more easy the getting a job in companies. Of course, if you have to go to construction, not design, construction companies are happy to see people understanding what is the technological side of the project. But also design offices need people to be able to do more than just nice renders. People are able to make the renders, draw correctly, but also understand the reality of those designs, how these things will become reality. And finally, they get much easier admission in graduate school overseas because they see a much more complete, solid formation. So this is a big effort, a pain, but really, if you are able to review all those things, all this studio will be much, much more convincing and much more effective. And you will be much, much more proud of what you did at school. And it's a big difference to graduate being proud, or at least having the satisfaction of you achieving something, than just having a very common complex of I graduated, but I have no idea of anything. And you will have someday and even faculty telling you don't know anything, you cannot go abroad, you have to learn real life in some office because now you are ignorant and so on. That's something you should try to avoid. Of course, we all graduate, all of us, with that experience. But experience is a question of time and working. Graduating, feeling ignorant is really, really devastating in all orders. This is the weekly schedule. This is a simplification of the syllabus. You know, you might download the detailed syllabus from the portal, and I advise you do it because also we have to fix some things. We have all the detail of the courses and all the rules for the class and so on. So please download, print it, and have it at hand. Even though we may change or adapt something, it's quite helpful. So this is week first, or first week. Today we have just a course introduction, and tomorrow, Friday, we will have just, again, a small introduction. A little less on the course itself, but on the contents. Then we will have 2 weeks working on structures, 4 weeks, almost 1 month, working on envelope. This is new because if you passed materials in the recent 4 or 5 years, we don't do structures in materials anymore. The envelope is an expansion of what we do in construction materials course. Actually, materials we have just 2 weeks. Here we have twice the time. So probably we will be able to see more case studies and more examples and so on. And then week 8 is the official time for midterm, but I put a note adapted to semester changes. So if we make the online exams, a full midterm online is quite heavy and tough. So what we did last year and worked very well is to break this in 3 small tests, about 30 minutes each, which allow you to have less material to study. And you have divided in 3. So if you have a bad day, you still have 2 more opportunities. So it's not easy to have 3 bad days or be unlucky 3 times in a row. So last year it worked quite well. So probably we might divide this exam in 3 parts divided through the semester, and we will announce which times you can prepare for it. After midterm, we continue. So we have interior and environmental systems for 2 weeks. We have to go very fast, but it's the time we have. And then, well, if we do this kind of a bit-by-bit test, the theory we will have in exams will end here probably. So we will not make exams of sustainability or system integration. But all the rest, the exam helps a lot to really consolidate or to arrange in your mind what you studied. We'll go later into that. And also tentative. We have to agree on the dates and make sure it works for everybody. We will have, again, 3 weeks dealing with sustainability. Again, this is very similar to what we saw in materials, but we will concentrate more on how we apply things into our design process. Which tools do we have to be sustainable? And I will try to include material of real projects, which may give you more context and not so much theory, but a practical vision. In week 14, usually at the end, when the weather is nicer, is when we try to have the site visits. I'm not sure, hopefully in May, June, the pandemic might be better. Might be worse, we don't know. If it's better, we may have the opportunity to go somewhere. Otherwise, we will go to the system integration, which is kind of the conclusion of everything we saw, how we can put into the design. I will have the final 2 weeks just for revision and completing the final, because we don't have final exam. Instead, we make the final submission of the assignment, where you have worked all those structure, envelope, and environmental systems and service systems into your own project, and you submit probably a digital file if we keep online, but something which could be printed in an A0 or A1 panel, or several pages A3 booklet. So this is the full contents, quite a lot, or let's say just enough. So, well, we commented, if we can, we'll do some site visit. You can see your zombie really amazed at the construction of, again, this is Amore Pacific building. The assignments, some of you, your zombie complain about assignments. It's too much work. And we're fifth year, we're busy, we cannot do so much work. Some zombies say, well, it's a lot of work, but actually it helps because you are forced to apply and understand. Actually, in the end, you become much better at design. So assignments are an important part of the course. It takes effort, but it also yields results. We will try to in the first part, case studies, but some of you may want to start directly with your project. So this is examples of what people did in previous years. So this was a KUA Cathedral. So some of your zombie tried to identify the elements and to analyze elements one by one or so on. Or in the case of the envelope, again, this is the Arco Center in Tejando, just trying to remake or to redo the envelope sections, which is how we understand details, and to identify different or difficult parts. Or even, well, this is analysis of drainage systems. So it's kind of seeing how many variations exist in details we show in class. That in practice, different buildings have specific solutions which are interesting to review. And I think the most important is the application to your design. The photo is a student work. Actually, it's a third-year student. But this is 1-50 model. And in this case, this was a student who had not really good grades, but making the effort to visualize how structure, envelope are really decided and how work gave him a different insight. And he ended being or having a very good result in design. And I've been able to study abroad in top schools. Whereas the design only and those abstract ideas didn't make him make anything good. So everybody has their own abilities. And actually being aware of this reality of the building, this construction, in many cases may awaken one ability or one interest that's latent or hidden or you didn't know about yourself. So apply to your project is important because you will see it more realistically. And this is examples of a student's project. So structure, in general, you have to see general diagram and then see how it works. In this case, it's too mixed with the envelope. That doesn't help. June 1. So this is a 2007 student. It's quite a long time ago. Now you do much better. And in general, you see this red is my feedback. So I will try to check and suggest what you can improve in terms of the system itself and the way you use your graphics, right? So there's like things which really do not work. And I will point out that. So having not experience at this makes things difficult, but well, you have to start at some time. And doing these exercises really help you connecting that theory with the reality. Envelope is easier to understand. So we make our material schedules and graphics. You're familiar for materials. And again, students have their own ideas on how to relate to structure, so on. And then I put my comments so you may decide. And also for MEP. Curiously, MEP is the worst part. Most students, like in this case, just copy a diagram from some book. Actually, I saw this diagram like 1,000 times. Independent of the project, can be one house, one school, one museum. It is always the same diagram. And this is what really doesn't help much. It is nice, a lot of work, but even some of the things are not even correctly copied. If you copy, you should copy at least correctly. And of course, it's not electricity either. This is obviously a drainage pipe. If you studied, you would know. Well, in service systems, we will go mostly to diagrams. Those diagrams help you to know where you need the space for those shafts and how you will have the distribution elements. So you may plan your ceiling height, right? The position of the elements, which actually this is not very correct. I always comment on that. And you may, in your space planning or your space design, see how those elements will affect your ceiling design, because you will have also lights and you have to have a nice ceiling there. So diagrams are the only thing I demand in terms of exercise for your project. But because of what I said, it helps really planning the space and controlling the final result. Some people are very detailed. Of course, if your design is a smaller scale, you may go more into details. And you might become aware that, of course, you cannot put a duct crossing the elevator, right? And you might have to rethink where do you put the shafts, because they need service and maintenance, so you don't need access and so on. Well, in terms of sustainability integration, also it is mostly diagramming and getting the ideas. So this is, again, one student in which he explained in the very detailed section, this is rotated, how things makes the building more energy efficient and more pleasant in terms of light and sunlight and so on. And in red, my comments as usual. And students, which of course they are copying details from somewhere else, but actually are well explained. And in this case, it was quite well integrated into the project. So being clear, convincing, and using details which may be copied from somewhere else, but well put into your project and adapted to them is a good feature in your projects. While this integration, we have some kind of a theoretical way of approaching it, which again, you can do through diagrams. The reference material, we will use the book of Andrea de Plazes, the one we used in materials. I myself used the second edition. I know there is a first edition translated in Korean. For what I heard, a very terrible translation, but still it's Korean. There is a third edition, which adds more material. This is not a book for you to pass the exam for engineering placement, maybe, but it is very good to reference because it's very practical and really helps connect those theoretical ideas to the design process. So I really recommend it as a reference. And we'll have many more. You don't need to have all of them, but for structures, Salvatore book, especially Why Buildings Stand Up, it's quite informative if you're curious. Some buildings you have in the library, Integrated Design for Sustainable Building. It's kind of textbook, clear, a little bit outdated already, but okay, it's like 10 years ago. One of the classical books, The Building Construction Illustrated by Francis Chin, helps you very much in terms of graphics and construction process. It is very much American based, so it's very much the American way of building. That's a problem we have. If you have European books, you have a European way of construction. In Korea, Korea is more inspired by the States, but there's also kind of a Japanese way of doing. There's a kind of tradition there. So it's not easy to find the Korean way. Surely you have Korean handbooks, which I cannot recommend, but any kind of organized book is always interesting. And again, books are always the favorite starting point, rather than just looking internet in a hurry for just the small bit you need of information, because you lack context, and very often the information you get is not contrasted, it's not controlled, so you might be confused more than informed. And then for the integration, we refer to the book of Roche. It is the guys who invented the theory, actually. It's MIT. The book, I think, is in the library also. And it's huge, it's thick, but has a lot of practical information. We will just refer to it in our lectures. So let's go to the practical thing. I think in terms of content and motivation and the why and the what is well explained. Now let's go to the how we go. And of course, we are online. Well, we have already 1 year experience, so we polished many corners, but still there are limitations we have to deal with. So this is how, well, this is a nostalgic photo of when we were able to go to the classroom. The students are just doing the midterm exam there. You can see them concentrated, but nobody stressed. So after the feedback I had after 1 year teaching online, the attendance is a bit reduced. So I'll give only 10%. Usually I give 20%, which is more than anybody does. But I think I'm going to class and attending seriously needs more recognition than usually it gets. But online, it is true that many students just log in and then do the other homework, go to sleep, and they just even put their photo in the video to show one face, but not really are there. But still we have to take into account, so it is 10%. And 40% goes to assignments. Why so much? Well, as I said, the most important is how you exercise yourself in applying this knowledge in real life or in real projects. And it's also a lot of feedback you will get, which is personal, direct to you, and probably they will help you improve those skills. So what doesn't change is that 50% of the grade is just attendance and weekly work. So regularity is important, and surely it will help you having better exams. Midterm, in 1, 2, or 3 bits, as we said, is 25%, it's a quarter. And the final presentation, which is actually all those assignments put together, reviewed, polished, and organized in a single or 2 A1 panels or in a A3 booklet, it's another 25%. This grading worked quite well because it gives a lot of balance, and it makes really hard to fail the course. But if you want to have the best grade, the A+, you really have to work hard in all aspects of the course. So it worked quite well. How do we do the grading? So I use a mixed system. We have a limitation for relative grading. So usually A to A+ go up to 40%, which is quite a lot. But some years the performance is not good. So not fair that somebody gets A+ with a poor performance, and other year people need to have a very good performance to have this A+. So I add a minimum score to go to those grades. I'm flexible there, but usually to get the A+, which is the most exigent, so you have really to work on it, you need at least 90% of the score, which in general is 95, right? So the combination of those two parameters is what gives you the A+. A, usually I can go to 85, sometimes a bit lower, but always considering this percentage. And then B+ is, in general, I give B+ to anybody who is average or above average in the final grade, right? So this is purely relative. So anybody who gets above the average of the class, and this is the final, including attendance, assignments, exam, and final assignment, anybody over the average gets a quite honorable B+. And then to have a B, you need at least 70 points, which is quite generous. And so for C also. And for D and passing the course, I understand the course is difficult, so I lower the bar to 50 points. Right. In some cases, if I see a great effort, I can go to 49, 48. But we're coming from a world where you have to demonstrate at least 60% of the total. But really, I'm trying to make it easy to pass. But it is not free. You have to do at least the minimum. So when you graduate and you have your pass, you can demonstrate you have this kind of minimum requirements. So you are not totally ignorant. This is about the grading. So about the classroom rules, well, this is how your Sombe are after just 3 weeks of class. Being online makes things different, but okay, this is the rules. If we ever return to normal life, the recommendations are the same. So I always recommend to work by hand, right? The assignments must be done by hand, except the final assignments. We will comment that on the course later. Working by hand makes a limitation in that copying and pasting assignments done by computer are often just copy and paste of things you don't even look. So sometimes I need to spend more time to look at your assignment than you are doing it. If you copy by hand, even if you copy exactly something, you have to process it and you have to go with your hand and you have a minimum mental process into it and you may adapt it. Besides, hand working, hand sketching is demonstrated to help you better to retain the contents of the lecture and to have a more active thinking process. And actually it's less stressful than working in the computer. So my recommendation for the notes is you just write by hand. At home, you can do whatever you want, of course, but the assignments, always by hand. Then you just scan and upload. Okay, please. I will just return unreviewed assignments which are done on computer. We start on the hour, so please come on time. Online classes are great because you don't need, in general, to take the subway or the bus. Usually you're at home, so please be on time. Otherwise, in online, it's even more disturbing. I have to give access to everybody coming late, and I have to stop, and everybody is interrupted. So please, please log in on time so we can start all 58 students at the same time. 12 absence or more may be a cause for failing the course, so be careful with it. If you have any problem, health, military, job interview, please say it ahead and give your proof on paper as soon as you have it, so we may excuse the attendance. And most important, as we said, attendance and assignments is most important. If you have regularity, the course is not so hard, because you'll have to organize yourself. And I know that Santiago's materials and Santiago's building systems assignments are the nightmare of everybody's weekend when we had the classes on Monday. But in the end, exams and design will be easier and will be less of a nightmare. And that will account for 50%, which will mean you might pass only doing nice attendance and the class assignments, even if you have a terrible midterm, or for some reason you cannot produce a good quality final assignment because you're overwhelmed with other classes. So regularity, good organization is key, not only for this course, for any other course you have. Okay. I have to insist on this. Some people, especially those on 5th year, I saw in the list, we have people from very old time, have 2010, 2011 students. So you may have also special circumstances. We had some people being in hospital and really not telling that clearly, or things like an interview. So please, as soon as you know you have a limitation, say it and document it. We need the proof that the school is demanding it. And be careful, because we had the case of very smart students making falsified medical certificates. Okay, some TA, very hardworking TA, called the hospital and they had no idea of that student going to that hospital. So please be careful with it, because that could be a big problem for you in the school. And being nearly to graduate is not worth you do those things. And this is what I wanted to say. So some people may have graduation circumstances, and this happens every year. Okay, some people who have been very long at the school may have the last chance to graduate, or they need to have a good job and the grades are not good enough, or they need something to study abroad, and so on. There's many individual circumstances which makes things difficult. If that's your case, say it now or whenever you know it. What is not fair is that I have students who do not submit assignments, do not come to class. Of course, they log in, but it is very easy to see they are not following the lecture. And the last day, or when they get the grades, they have a clear F, and they start crying. What is my last chance? Please give me a second chance. You cannot do in 1 week. You cannot make up for a full course. You were doing nothing. So that's a bit cheeky and too fresh. So please, if you have difficulties, we are here to help, believe it or not. So we can design some strategy for you to have an acceptable result, taking into account your difficulties. What is not fair is that you come to the last day and you try just to get a pass or even a good degree. I see some of those who cry in the last minute to have their F changed. They ask to have at least a B+, right? Not even a D. And it's totally unacceptable. And I insist here because this happens almost every semester. If that's your case, please tell me. I will try to do something so you can pass and it will not be a burden, and you can graduate, you can have your job, or you can study abroad, whatever. At least this course is not a difficulty for that. Well, we are almost in the end. This is how we had our previous years. So curiously, for 6 years, we were changing between underground classes and classes with Windows. And by system, whenever we had Windows in class, just natural light, the exam result was better. Just the final result is different because you do the assignments at home, but actually it's surprising what the environment can make. So yes, so the exams were better when we had Windows. So if you are working at home or in a studio, whatever, follow the classes with near the window with the real light, and your mind will be much more awake. We had best year was 2014. Students were super happy, and everybody passed. Of course, it was a very small group, and that also helps. Then we had 1 year, 2019. We decided not to make exam. So many of the students before said the exam, whatever. So we did an exam, and it was the worst year in terms of student satisfaction ever. After that, I decided to have always exams. An annoyance, but no exam meant actually not trying hard at all, and not listening, not understanding, and reaching the end almost without having the course. Last year, it was the first time online. The exam was the second worst. If the exams grades are very low, I usually compensate a little bit. So I just raised the average to the previous year's average, which is about 78, 77. But curiously, the students were quite happy. And for the second time in many years, we have nobody failing. So this is one of the few courses in which nobody is retaking this course. I hope this is coming fresh. So this year, we have one of the largest classes. So largest was 60, we are 58. That's a plan always, but well, we have the experience, and last year was not bad. So let's try to make this the best year ever, even if we are online. This is just a photo where we had classrooms. Even the photo, you can see the difference of the environment. On the left is one of those lovely lecture rooms the school provides without windows, with very good quality fluorescent light, but without windows. And then right is the class with windows. Just in the photo, you can breathe. Totally different feeling. So after that, whenever we have offline classes, I ask the school to have a class with windows, whatever. To end, 10 minutes, so we will finish on time. We will try to finish always on time. It is difficult, so sometimes we might go a bit more, but I will try to finish at 11:45 sharp, a bit earlier, or at most 3 to 5 minutes later, okay? So let's see your opinion, your senior's opinion. And curiously, we have positive and negative opinions. So there is always positive people. The class is difficult. Okay, difficult is correct. We come to university to learn difficult things. Full stop. So I should have learned the detail instead of 3Ds. Okay, so well, it's kind of looking back and telling we have to learn everything. I learned a lot about practical knowledge, and it's great to understand things which are not so flashy. Okay, so we have people very happy, but people really angry. It's too much. And that happens every semester. And it is independent of the volume. Sometimes I give less material, sometimes I give more. It is always too much. We cannot accept it. Yeah, come on. It is unacceptable. How can you make us study in fifth year? Fifth year students are too busy. Come on, how do you make understand? And the lectures are not clear. It was very hard and I couldn't concentrate. Right. So you see, there's no way to make everybody happy. Well, let's see. Following years, and this is the same. Some people think the course is very well planned, appropriate, and it's very satisfying. But some people say the same year, it's terrible, the process is not appropriate, and it's not a good lecture. Some people, it is not easy. Again, if it is not easy, it is correct, right? Easy, whatever you feel, it is very easy. If you're not a super genius, you should think something is wrong, right? So it was not easy, but helpful. Always when you achieve something which is difficult, you're more satisfied than doing something which is very easy, right? And you have a lot of feedback and so on, so it's great. But some people, it's too difficult. The professor here gave feedback, the professor doesn't try to understand. It's difficult and efficient. I'm such a bad guy. Okay, again, we have this kind of conflicting views, which depends very much on the experience of each, right? Actually, I'm the same. I have not two faces. This is the only face I have. Let's go to, this is the year we had no exams. And some students were happy. Oh, it's so great to not have exams. But most people said, without exams, there was less attention in class and too much stress in the assignments. And this was true. You saw that it was the worst class in history. And I'm sure we all hate exams. But if we are specific in the Korean culture, your life has been about exams. So you're really, really good at exams, let's say it. So this is just in terms of give a balance. This is why we good exams. Again, it is very well organized and managed, but some people say the teacher is mean, really nasty guy, right? And say, okay, see this, I'm not polite. Come on, you should be polite. Actually, when I am asked about Korean students, I say, oh, they are so polite, so educated, at least in front of the professor. I know in the back, you say all kind of nasty and ill things, but okay, I have been also a student, so I know about it. But I think that my being sarcastic is a bit painful to somebody. Okay, I will try not to be too nasty, but being sarcastic is, I think, in the right of who's teaching you, right? So, but well, I admit the critic. And this is from last year, again, because we have, for the first time, online teaching opinions. And most people actually were very positive. So the class is systematic. Actually, online classes, not only for you, but for us, are quite cumbersome. We need to organize a lot of things. But having the lectures on YouTube helped review. One thing with the YouTube, always I advise you to listen carefully to the live lecture time. At least you see them once. Many people say, oh, we have done in YouTube a week later, and you end having like 20 lectures to see in a row, and nobody can see 20 lectures even in YouTube, right? So at least have the live class and have YouTube as a kind of help support to go back to things you don't understand. The homework was a lot, but we learned. That's the point of the course. You need effort, but you have results. Of course, there are people negative, right? So if it was offline, I could concentrate more, but if it was online, I couldn't concentrate. And this is the case of people sleeping in the lecture because it is not so early, but it's a temptation. And then thinking I will catch up later with the recorded lessons, but not doing that. And okay, we tried to make attendance check with the chat. It didn't work very well. So last semester in materials, we have alternative strategies. So I will try to do something which does not depend on the chat, which is so easy as just saying goodbye at the end. So I know at least you were able to know when the class ends. Some people are locked in even 1 hour after the class ends. That means they're not really listening. But well, we are devising many strategies for attendance, and we will tell in each class. So we will have a better idea on how things go. And then this is when I repeat. Actually, you might remember from materials, but this is my favorite critics. They come all together. But to conclude, some people say this is the best ever. I will never forget the lessons. It's the best course provided in the 5 years. So it's very flattering. But some say, you are the worst teacher for me. I don't want to see you forever, which I hope this didn't see me. Okay, this is like the most extreme opinions you may have. And why do I put this? Of course, it is nice to know that no matter what I do, things can be always improved. And I will be frank with you. Your opinions helped a lot to improve the courses. So they seem the same, but there are small adjustments, always following your sincere, clear opinions. But no matter what I do, there will be people happy and people unhappy. And well, the result of the course depends mostly on you, right? You will make the experience of the course being positive and useful, or you will make it useless, right? I'm aware of my limitations, and I'm aware of the limitations of the online course and the limitations having a huge program in a very limited time. But the ones who study, who learn, who benefit from it is you, right? So that said, I think we are on time, and I said all I wanted to say. If you have any question or problem, you can use the chat, but you can always email me. In general, so good questions. So good questions are those who just point at some missed parts of one lecture or some mistakes. Still, I find typos and some things which need update. So good questions always considered to have extra points. Of course, silly questions are okay. So I will not scold people for making silly questions. So you can ask without any problem. I reply all. But if the questions are good and really helpful, this will give you some extra point, which will also help you, because those questions really help improve the course. And if you have an important question, chances are that other students also have this kind of doubt, right? So you're helping all. So don't be afraid to ask. And also, if you have something which you think is wrong, and if you want to complain, the earlier you do, the better. I can just rebate it until there is not motive for complaining. But if there's a real problem, it is better to know earlier, because then we can do something about it, right? If you say when everything is finished, I can only try to improve the following semester. So if you are really suffering every week and you're depressed because of my being sarcastic, tell me at the beginning, so I will try to be a bit less sarcastic. Not tell me at the end when you have the 16 weeks of sarcasm and your ego totally hurt and destroyed. Because sometimes that comes spontaneously, and sometimes we don't even feel this can be so painful for somebody. Okay, so that said, well, this should come before, so don't be afraid of asking. And tomorrow, Friday, we'll have our first lecture. That said, thank you so much for your attendance. From tomorrow on, we will be strict with the attendance. Introduction is also a bit more free, but I will consider you being here. So if you want to demonstrate you were here till the end, please say hello or just goodbye in the chat. Also, as I said, the chat will be not the main way of checking for attendance. So thank you so much for your attendance. I hope to see you tomorrow, and really I hope you have a good result in this course. Goodbye.